everybody. Welcome back to another Free-for-All Tuesday. What's going on, chat? How we doing out there? Happy Tuesday. I hope everyone's having a lovely and fantastic Tuesday out there today. I'm very interested to see what this is about. I saw Warren Smith put up a video about this today, but I haven't watched the video. But I'm very curious because everyone knows I'm not a fan at all of Tim Pool, and I am very ambivalent on Andrew Wilson. I do think his debating style is very uniquely his. I think I need new speakers. The one on the right keeps cutting out. Well, my stuff is out in mono, split into stereo, so I'm pretty sure it's not my audio. What's going on, everyone? How we doing? I don't really have too much to say before we get started. Oh, shit. I forgot my thing over here. Oh, everything's full. Yay. It's not everything. It's not just the stream. Okay. Tim Beanie Boy Pool. Indeed. It seems fine to me. Yeah, I think it's his audio. I think he was just making a, observation, more or less. But that's okay. Let's see what we got hanging out in the chat. Mike Savage, hello. Advocates, what's going on? Southern Gothic, Feldo, how we doing? Shiru. Dixie Wrecked, TC, Mr. Caveman, what's going on, guys? Bookworm Addict, hello. Darth Geist, what's going on? Southern Gothic is correct. Hit like, y'all. Indeed, do hit the like. Tree, hello. Chris Gilroy subscribing with Prime. They've subscribed for 7, currently on a 4-month streak. Thank you so much, Chris Gilroy. Who's in the Twitch chat? By and large, Twitch chat is usually pretty dead, but people are definitely more than welcome to hang out over there. It's a fun place to be. Spoofers, what's going on? I don't like the new chat leaderboard shtick YouTubers trying to do. I don't understand it, really. I don't get how it works, either. How do you get the XP? Like, what do you do to earn the XP? Like, is it liking, chatting? I don't get it. Doing okay, J Money. Hope you are doing well. I'm used to being on my own. Crab. Yeah, that's my favorite thing. It's my new favorite thing. Super Chat gets you a lot of points. It's a gimmick. You just yap in the chat, apparently. Okay. I guess if that's what, YouTube's really, if YouTube is going to do anything, if they're going to keep copying gimmicks from Twitch, what they need to do is they need to allow a raid function for live streams. They need to do that right off the bat. That would be the #1 thing to get them what they're kind of looking for. And they still haven't found what they're looking for. Just chat and super chat. That's interesting. Totally won't be exploited by spam. I mean, do you guys get anything for topping the leaderboards? Let me take a drink of my drink here. Or do you just get the thing next to your name? You're limited to 75 points an hour for just chats. So what? Oh, so it's basically it's a gimmick for super chat. I mean, I get it, but it's what they need to not copy from Twitch is their ads. Jesus Christ, are you guys getting inundated with ads? I'm sorry. I wish I could help with that, but alas, I am simply unable to. Okay. Yeah, let's just get right into this. I'll have this up, but I think I'm going to cook some meats. Oh, hell yeah. That sounds yummy, yummy. So, guys, yes, please hit the like button. Please share it out, all that stuff. If you want to support and you know how to do that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We have 12 new donations down below for your pleasure, and these ones are only going to be here for fucking by next Tuesday they'll be gone. So it's today and AAA, then Christmas donations are gone, and it will be time for the Halloween donos to be up. So if you guys want to see any of those fun new gimmicks, you know how to do that. But yes, the liking and the sharing are most important. Let's get into this. I don't know. I think Tim took the original stream down, but put up some highlights. So we'll take a look at a couple of them. We'll see how we're feeling at the end of like the first two. So yes, with the liking and the sharing, last week I cleared 2 of my 40K painting project. Ooh, let me see. I want to see. Yes, the liking and the sharing. Let's get to it.
Government enshrined protections are not real.
What?
Rights that we, as we know them, are just things that we recognize as things of value to us. So for instance, I usually define it as simply, you have a...
That is a fucking wild take to start with. Government rights are not real? All right, that's a bold opener, Tim.
Right to speak freely. If you're in the middle of the woods and you're buck naked, you can say whatever you want. You have a right to keep and bear arms. Pick up a stick, sharpen it, pointy stick, you can defend yourself. Ain't no one going to stop you. The question is, when you get into conflict with someone else, where is that line drawn? So the reality is, rights are recognized as things that we can and must do to survive and maximize
I think rights are force, and I think that...
You think rights are force?
Government
yeah,
protections.
What do you mean rights are force?
You're talking about government
No,
protections.
I'm talking about period. I'll explain.
Okay, I want to take a stab at what I think Andrew is going to say here. Rights are force that we have because we can take them by force. That's my guess as to what he's going to say. They can't be taken from us by force. Maybe something like that. But it's a pretty interesting opener for Tim.
What I mean. A right to me is an entitlement absent duty. That's a right. Okay, you're entitled to it, but you have no duty.
What does that mean?
It means that you have it. So like, okay.
Entitlement to speak.
Yeah, so if you have a right to own a gun.
To speak.
No, hang on, let me finish. If you have a right to own a gun.
Tim Pool, he's already starting with this interrupting shit, so I can already tell that he's feeling a certain type of way about this, that he feels the need to immediately start to interrupt Andrew. What? Play? Why are you not
duty
playing?
to own a gun.
But do you have a duty to speak?
No, you don't
Start
have a
with the
duty to
first one.
speak.
If you have a right to vote, do you have a duty to vote?
What the fuck does that mean? Let's start with the first one. No, they're specifically talking about guns. Why? What makes Tim feel the need to go, well, no, we got to start with the First Amendment. Like, Tim reminds me sort of like a Chihuahua. He's like, he's tiny and he's yappy, but like he just doesn't let people speak.
So right, so it'd be an entitlement.
That's your argument.
It's an entitlement,
but
absent a duty.
But you can speak.
Yeah, you can.
Entitlement absent duty makes perfect sense. Like, you can do it, but you don't have to do it. You can vote, you don't have to vote. You can own a gun, you don't have to own a gun. Why does Tim immediately go, well, do you have to talk?
And so
until you can't.
The question,
until somebody stops you with force.
So you're talking about government restrictions are made.
I got to hear that again. I was hacking up along.
And so
until you can't.
The question,
until somebody stops you with force.
So you're talking.
Okay, see now this, and everyone knows I am not a big Andrew fan, but this makes perfect sense to me. It's like, you have this right until somebody forces you to not have it. That makes perfect sense to me, what he's saying. Now let's see how wrong Tim can get it.
About government restrictions are made up by us as a people.
Just people can adhere to your rights without any form of government. If you're walking down the street and you speak and a guy turns around and smacks you in the mouth and breaks your jaw, right? He has now used force against whatever this right you think you have to speak. You have no right to do shit except whatever you can enforce. Right. Your mechanism is force, and the mechanism against you is force. And so all rights are force.
You're talking about government protections, not rights.
No, I'm talking about rights. What is a right?
So it is an intrinsic moral function.
Well, okay,
or
intrinsic meaning what?
It means if again, I'll try to explain. If you're born and you live in the middle of the woods, there are things you can do. You can hunt for food. You can defend yourself. You can speak freely. Now, what we've done in the United States
Unless
is
you're born blind and you can't talk, right? Then where does your right to speak come from?
You lack the ability to speak,
right?
But you still have the means by which you are allowed to.
I gotta hear that again.
Yourself, you can speak freely. It is an intrinsic.
Okay, I think what Andrew's saying here, and I could be wrong. Someone in the chat, please correct me if I'm missing something here. But I think what Andrew's trying to say is that all of the rights that you have are rights that you can defend with force. Like if somebody punches you in the face and says, shut the fuck up, and you can't defend yourself, then you don't have the right to talk right there. I think that's what he's saying. I could be a little bit off on that, but I think that's what he's getting at. Yeah, without force, your rights would mean nothing. Okay, so I wasn't super far off.
Moral function
or intrinsic meaning what?
It means if again, I'll try to explain. If you're born and you live in the middle of the woods, there are things you can do. You can hunt for food. You can defend yourself. You can speak freely. Now, what we've done in the United States
Unless you're born blind and you can't talk, right? Then where does your right to speak come from?
You lack the ability to speak,
right?
But you still have the means by which you are allowed to do it.
Yeah, but what makes it an intrinsic right to be able to do? Like, where does this idea come from, other than you axiomatically kind of just say? You say because I can do something, I have the right to do something.
It's part of a evolutionary biological structure that resulted in the survival of humanity.
So if I like grab a spear and I can stab somebody with it, I have a right to.
No, that's attacking somebody. That's violating.
Yeah, but other than an axiom of you shouldn't do that because I just don't feel like you should, what makes it intrinsic that I don't do that?
That you don't go and kill another person?
Yeah. So
the way I view rights would be things that and again, there's a debate over what rights are.
Yeah, let's start with that. What are they?
No. So there, it's honestly difficult to define, but it is certain moral structures or.
I would say axioms. Would you agree with that? Just an axiom. So like, you have inalienable rights from God according to the Constitution. This is an axiomatic principle. It means this is our like philosophical starting point. Is that we have these.
I would put it as things that were required or greatly beneficial to the survival of an individual that we greatly benefit.
I agree. We benefit. I just don't know what makes them intrinsic, or like you're born with them, or something like this. Other than we just kind of agree to it.
So I think the restrictions we kind of agree to, and some people might view some things as rights and other things not.
Okay, but you're answering the opposite of what he asked there. He's like, why is it that you get these? Why do you have these? That's what he's getting at. I just don't think that's landing for Tim.
Rights. Like the left thinks healthcare is a human right, which makes literally no sense.
No sense.
But in terms of your ability to speak, you can walk around, you can speak, to defend yourself, you can pick up a stick, you can defend yourself.
But this goes back to the same argument. I can grab a spear and murder somebody. I can do that. Why don't I have a right to do that?
Because you are now.
Okay, so Andrew's just asking Tim a simple why. Why is this intrinsic? Why do you believe that you have this right intrinsically? Why can you enforce it? That's what Andrew's asking Tim, and Tim just it's just not landing for him. For some, I don't know why Tim doesn't understand what he's doing. I feel like Tim doesn't understand a lot, but I also feel like he has to. He's fallen into this category where he has to constantly be putting on a certain type of personality for his viewers instead of saying what he actually thinks and what he actually believes. And that's super, super, super detrimental to somebody like him who does a show like this. Like, I feel like he has sequestered himself to a place where he can't speak freely.
Causing harm to another person, which is a detriment.
But why is that valuable?
Why are other people valuable?
Yeah, well, why would that be an intrinsic value? So like,
one would result in the end of humanity, and one results in the expansion of humanity.
Well, no, both can result in the expansion of humanity.
Right, but...
And both can result in the end.
Absolutely not. You're completely wrong.
No, I'm completely right.
You are wrong. Self-defense can result in expansion of humanity if you're using destruction for the purpose of ending something that is destructive. But if you are wantonly going around murdering people, you're actively reducing and harming humanity.
Well, okay, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't expand humanity by harming people.
Well, okay, it's simple response to that is Genghis Khan. He killed God knows how many people, but he expanded his part of humanity.
People, there's
so the argument of self-defense is there are things that we believe we must be able to do for the betterment and survival of humanity.
Yeah, but when I'm asking you this question, right, I'm asking the foundation from which you say, I have the right to speak or write.
We need to be able to in order to survive.
Because you need to do something. So I'm not sure how that means you have a right to it, though.
Okay, so speech is not just saying words. Speech.
Yeah, okay. See, now Tim literally just fell for his own trap there. You need healthcare. Like, healthcare is absolutely essential for human survival. You have no right to healthcare. You have no right to other people's labor. You need food to survive. Do you have a right to food? You need water to survive. Do you have a right to water?
A right to eat?
Yes, 100%.
Really? You have a right to do that?
Why would you?
Yes, you don't have a right to own food. So if I have, but you have a right to eat, otherwise you'll die.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Do you have a right to?
The right to eat and the right to own food are not the same thing.
Breathe. What about breathing?
Well, these are good questions. Right?
Again, I don't think you understand. We're talking about intrinsic behaviors that are required for survival versus the government and humans deciding what we shouldn't have.
I don't think we're speaking past each other. I'm asking what makes them intrinsic. When you say I have a right to eat, okay?
If you don't, you'll die.
If you have no, if that guy has all the food over there, you no longer have a right to eat.
We're not talking about your right to steal from others. If you are standing in the woods by yourself, if you're standing in the woods by yourself, eat that mushroom.
Okay, got it. You can eat.
Okay, they are talking about two completely different things. Tim is talking about, yes, you have the right to. Tim always does this. The Vosh types always go for the on the island thing. Yes, on an island you have the right to eat the food. But what Andrew was talking about is that, okay, what are you going to do if somebody else has all the food? So he's asking him a completely different question.
The mushroom. But what makes it a right to eat that mushroom? And what makes it not a right for guy standing next to the mushroom to say, okay, I have a gun and I don't want you to eat that mushroom?
You're now once again talking about laws and restrictions.
Yeah, okay, but my whole theory is that rights themselves are force, and that's all they ever are. It's just your ability to use force to do thing you want to do.
I think you're just making
you call that a right.
I call rights things that are essential to the survival of humanity.
So you have a right to your heart beating and your blood flowing and to blink and to...
Yes.
Okay, so if you
now you misunderstand because once again you're talking about government again.
How is this government? It doesn't need to be government.
If you are standing in the middle of the woods and your heart is beating, your heart has a right to beat. If your heart fails and you die, you died. If you're making an argument that someone should or should not be allowed to do something is an entirely human social construct.
I agree.
Right. I'm saying that the reason we have protections of rights is because we've determined certain things are required for the reasonable survival and expansion of humanity.
I agree. We agree to those things, and we act as though they're rights.
And the Bill of Rights.
But I don't think rights themselves exist.
The Bill of Rights is a recognition of certain things that we do for the betterment of survival that must be protected from government. Now, if you want to argue the amendments in the Bill of Rights are nonsensical, fine. If you want to have a moral argument or philosophical argument about what is required or intrinsic to the survival of humanity, by all means have that argument. But rights do exist. It just means some you might not agree with and some you might think aren't. Those are philosophical debates.
Yeah, but when you say exist, right? Do you mean outside of your brain they exist, or do they only exist as a construction of your mind where you say, I have a right to do X?
If we observe creatures in the wild, we will see them.
Again, Tim keeps falling back on this in a vacuum thing. Andrew's not talking about in a vacuum. He's talking about, okay, how do you respond if somebody is taking your rights away? What is your response to you being on this island and somebody else has all the food? Like, you don't have a right to that food. You said it yourself. You just said it. You don't have a right to steal from people. So how do you respond to the person who has all the food that you have said yourself? You have no right to steal, and you are not, and assuming you are not willing to use any type of violence to acquire this stuff. What do you do? And for some reason, Tim just can't accept that that's where he's going with it. Like, that's the part I'm having a hard time getting, is like, Tim is, he's just, he has to be willingly just not paying attention to what is being said to him.
Required to do things to survive.
Yeah. Okay. So
if you inhibit those things, they will die.
So if just rights
protect
to you,
those things.
So rights to you just mean things which are a requirement for your existence?
And typically we define them as such because they transcend the basic obvious things like breathing and drinking water.
Owning a gun isn't a requirement to your existence.
No, defending yourself is.
Yeah, but
if a bear comes in the middle of the woods.
Okay, how many people in their lives need to defend themselves with deadly force? I don't know. I don't know the answer to it. You have the right to do that, but how many people have needed to do that?
And you don't have the ability to defend yourself, you cease to exist and humans cease to exist. So humans do defend themselves. Then as human society, we've decided this should be protected, otherwise humans will cease to exist.
Yeah, but why? Okay, but this makes no sense, right? So if all right is to you, Tim, is thing X which is necessary for the survival of a man, in this case blinking and breathing and eating and pooping and whatever, you have the right to poop shall not be because you have a right to do that because it's like something you need to do to be alive.
Right, but you can't poop on someone's floor.
Why couldn't you extend that to literally everything? You need healthcare to survive. You need guns to survive. You need a house to survive. You need everything to survive.
I think we should move on, but I think the challenge is, I don't know if you're unwilling to understand or what. You have no right to take other things from other people, to take their labor. You have no right to force a doctor to perform surgery on you, but you certainly have a right to ask him for it.
Those are just assertions. Like, you just assert these things as though they have a grounding epistemic foundation from which you can make the assertion. Based on where do you make the assertion that you're not allowed to do X other than because Tim Pool's preference is that you don't?
And I'm literally...
That's kind of what Tim's getting at here, is he doesn't have a reason as to why. He just thinks that is the case. And I think that's where Tim's fucking up here, is him and Andrew are talking about two very different things. They're talking about two very different things. The right to creamy shits shall not be infringed. Goddamn right, Sam. And if you guys want to see the creamy shits or any Streamlabs, all that's down below. We have 12 new Christmas donations that will be gone by this time next week.
Saying you're talking about laws and social order right now, not human behaviors for survival.
I think human behaviors are laws and social orders. I think you're saying the same thing.
No, if a person was in the middle of the woods, they'd be foraging and looking for food.
Yeah, what does that have to do with what I just said?
You're talking about what the government can and can't do. I'm talking about what humans need to do to survive.
Yeah, okay. Well, humans also have to have other humans around to survive.
And so this is, communication is essential. The right to defend yourself is essential. The right to secure your possessions is essential. These things, without them, humans cease to function properly. And then you get the Soviet bloc, you get starvation, you get genocides.
It's also
this is a detriment
it's a function of our belief system in the United States that we have natural rights. I mean,
I agree with that.
That's a huge part of
it.
I
agree with that. I agree with that, that in the United States, we agree that
but
we have them.
I think you can
not
say
sure
that
everyone,
that we do. I think that you can say that everyone has these rights, and it's a function of whether or not their government allows the rights to be recognized.
That's the contention. When you say, I think everybody...
Why is he so obsessed with being in the woods? Because, to be honest, he's not got a super strong argument, so he needs it to be in the vacuum. I talk about this guy a lot, and if you guys are not familiar with him, you should be. His name is... Mentis Wave, and he did a great video on the island tactic in a debate. Like, okay, on an island, XYZ, if you're on an island, blah, 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 blah. That is a great video. Trappers and mountain men didn't need others to survive, just saying. Yeah, hey, Matt Barnes, long time no see, buddy. I have a right to my Warhammer minis. Yes, you do. You do. But not ones provided by the government. I was literally thinking of that video. It's a really good video. And it's a really interesting thing to see kind of out in the wild. Because once you need to start with the, in a vacuum, my rights are XYZ, you kind of like missing the entire debate point. He likes to complain as a chicken farmer living off the grid in the mountains. He's a library grifter from Chicago. Did you mean liberal? He's a library grifter. What's the channel name again? Mentis Wave. They do some fantastic videos from a libertarian standpoint. So I really, and this is the worst indictment I ever have. Really, honestly, for anybody, especially in this part of the internet, the kind of debatey, political, whatever side, this is the worst indictment I can think of for somebody. But it's like, does Tim really believe what he's saying right here, or is he just saying stuff because he has to say stuff? Mentis Wave-based Hoppy, bro. Indeed. Yeah, fucking library grifter. But that is like the worst indictment for people in this, like, kind of where we're at with Tim Pool right now is like, I really don't think he believes what he's saying right now. I think he just has to say it. If that makes sense. Like, because I'm having a hard time. Like, is Tim Pool just this dumb? Or is he just saying things? Two things bug me with him at times. Him saying about being mixed race and how he was part of Vice News back before one. I mean, that's kind of when I stopped listening to him, is when every single video was, you know, I'm a Korean skateboarder who worked for Vice. I supported Occupy Wall Street. Like, okay, yeah, I get it, Tim.
Has these rights.
Yeah, that is my belief.
Yeah, it's a belief.
Yeah.
Based on
existence. I mean,
based on just your preferences.
So there's,
I don't think it's a preference. I think everyone has a right to breathe. And
you do. In the big picture of what are the list of fundamental rights that exist to humans, cultures debate these things wildly, but there are a small handful which are true and correct. If inhibited, a person dies.
Agreed. But what I'm saying, I guess my overarching point, and I could just kind of tie it off
society
with this,
fails.
is that when I say rights are forced, what I'm saying is the thing that you say is necessary, breathing, eating, these types of things. I think that those things, which you call rights, really are just force. You're saying I will use force in order to do this thing that I want to do to necessarily exist. And that.
Okay. I think Andrew does this maybe on purpose, but like a real simple thing right here would be to go, Tim, listen, you're on your island, right? You're alone on your island. Sorry, allergies. Allergies are super fun. Don't get old, kids. You're on your island, and a guy comes up to you. And when this guy comes up to you, he says, man, you got all the chickens over here, don't you? And Tim goes, yeah, and then he takes them. Like, you have a right to those chickens, sure, but this dude just came up and took them from you. What are you going to do? I think that's kind of what he's going for here, but he just won't say that. It's like, okay, you have these rights. How can you defend them?
And another person can use force to stop those things from existing.
And then you can use force to stop them.
Right, and then you can use force, et cetera, et
Because you have a
cetera.
right to
But all we're
self-defense.
really doing is just moving the goalpost of force around, right? So if this group says this group does not have the right to breathe, they do not have the right to eat, they do not have the right to do any of this shit, and they go and put a stop to it,
But you don't-
what
but
are we
that group-
appealing to for
but that
why it
group
is that you
doesn't-
can't do that?
That group doesn't have the right to do
Yeah,
that.
but that makes no sense.
Like
Why
you're
wouldn't they
saying-
have the
you're
right to do
saying-
that?
You're saying might makes right, which is
Well,
what
it's beyond.
Might makes insurance. Might makes you can't stop me. That's what might makes. Might does not make right, but might makes assurance.
That, I think you're making a postmodernist argument for why you should be allowed to do things that other people don't want you to do.
I think I think the opposite is true.
I'm making.
I would use a justification of God, and I would appeal to something which is unchanging and an unchanging standard for moral justifications for oughts. But what you're doing when you say a right and you're appealing to like the Constitution, that's postmodernist subjective standards of nonsense, right? It's just like
No, it's moral
we all
foundation.
decided that we have these rights, so we do. There's no justification for any of them.
So
Zero.
you don't believe in any intrinsic moral foundations?
No, I do believe in intrinsic moral foundations and epistemic justifications and ontological justifications, which would come from God.
I think you're doing deconstructivist reasoning to argue why.
It's just basic philosophy. It has nothing to do with deconstruction or postmodernism. Basic philosophy, you have to have a justification for a position.
And when I've given you one, you just reject it every
Yeah,
time.
well,
You say,
because they're axiomatic. So you haven't demonstrated why the axiom or the starting point. We start with rights, Andrew. You haven't demonstrated why we do, other than because I observe that if we don't act in this way, you expire. But it's like, okay, but why is that even bad? Like, why is that even a bad thing?
Why is it bad that humans cease to exist?
Yeah, why would that even be a bad thing from the worldview of rights? Like, oh, okay, if you don't have this right, you die. But you haven't justified why that's even a bad thing.
Because humans exist through a pattern of evolution towards, or creation, whichever you decide, for to be fruitful, to bear fruit, and etc. These things are components of creation and life. I think this aligns perfectly with like a Christian, Judeo-Christian moral worldview, and I think these things are requirements for the efficient expansion and fruitfulness of humans. So they are natural.
Well, I gotta hear that.
Why
again.
that's even a bad thing?
Because humans exist through a pattern of evolution towards, or creation, whichever you decide, for to be fruitful, to bear fruit, and etc. These things are components of creation and life. I think this aligns perfectly with like a Christian, Judeo-Christian moral worldview, and I think these things are requirements for the efficient expansion and fruitfulness of humans. So they are.
So, how, Tim, will you defend these rights? That's what Andrew's getting at here. Okay, you have these rights. Now, what are you going to do if somebody tries to take this away from you? Yeah, and you know, everyone here knows I'm not a huge fan of fucking Wilson over here. Wilson. I'm not a huge fan of Andrew Wilson over here, but he's lightweight dog walking Tim right here, because Tim either cannot or will not just answer the simple question of why. Why do you have these rights? Why should you have these rights? Andrew's on the right track with this one. He really is too, and it's just kind of crazy that Tim cannot or will not see what he's saying here. And like, It really could just come down to dumb. But I don't think it is. I feel like Tim just won't bite the bullet and say, yes, rights are rights to us. Like, Americans, human beings, have the rights we have because we have the might to defend them. It is pretty much enshrined in the Constitution. Like, okay, if anyone tries to take away these rights, this is why you have this one. Don't forget that. We'll see you again.
Natural, either from an evolutionary standpoint, humans developed to inherit certain requirements to function efficiently. And when these things are curtailed, we see...
I'm sorry, I keep coughing and clearing my throat. It's air warning here today.
Efficiency and collapse, disease, and chaos.
This is circular. So you go, okay, we need to bear fruit and multiply. Why? Well, because then we can exist. Why do we need to exist? Because then we can bear fruit and multiply. Okay, but why? Because then we can exist.
You're just being contrarian for no reason.
No, it's not contrarian. I'm giving you a real principle.
It's not contrarian. Like, he has given you many, many examples as to why he is saying what he's saying, and you just either refuse to acknowledge or cannot come up with something to refute what he's saying. Like, if you just want to go, I like these rights, but I am not a violent person, you can say that. It'll look really bad for you, but you can say that.
God.
Yeah, I'm a Christian.
If I say God gives you a mandate, so when God says has a mandate to be fruitful and multiply, do you say yes or no?
Yeah, of course.
Are there certain characteristics and behaviors that result in benefit and in more efficient, fruitful multiplying?
Of course.
Aren't the, so are
that's
those,
divine?
that's,
but this is hang on. This is divine command. Justification from divine command has nothing to do with libertarian nonsense of constitutional egalitarianism.
I think instead of having a discussion on the merits of what rights might mean, you're instead upset over what libertarians think rights might mean, as opposed to what I'm actually trying to say.
Okay, well, do you justify rights as coming from God?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, then we're fine there. But so I think we actually agree. So then if that is the case, if whatever you think rights are come from God, then whatever else we're appealing to external to God for where a right comes from isn't really a right, right? It's not really a right.
I think that life, goodness, creation, there is deep overlap. I think a simple way to look at it is, you know, yin yang, within good there is some evil, within evil there is some good. And a way to explain that is sometimes we have to destroy to create. What does that mean? If there's a mass murderer who's murdering children, we unfortunately, we don't want to, but we stop that person to defend ourselves and others' lives. I think that there is divine mandate that we must, you know, be fruitful, multiply. We are here to organize, to create. There's a secular way of looking at it. It's evolution that developed us to this point where we have internalized these things that we must do, or that result in a more efficient way of life. Or more simply, there is a God, there is a divine structure and mandate which results in certain things that are beneficial to mankind that I would describe as good and just, and there are things that are evil and unjust.
So as we get to the heart of it then, right here, where we come to this agreement, where I reject this, is I think all the things you just stated are duties. They're duties, they're the opposite of rights. You have a duty.
I just think we're having a semantic argument.
Well, but semantics are super important so we don't speak past each other. So when I say a duty, it's an obligation to do a thing based on the fact that you're commanded to, in this case by God. A right, I would say, is an entitlement absent duty. So if that's the case, what you're listing out is like God is giving us these duties to do. I'm not sure what rights he's giving you.
I'm saying there are certain behaviors that there are certain behaviors, there are certain functions of life that are a component of God's divine plan mandate. And I could argue it in a secular way for people who don't.
Is Tim, is he cosplaying as a religious believer now? Because I could swear to God I remember him saying that he's not a religious person.
Don't believe in God or whatever.
Sure.
There's a natural structure of the universe that says to humans, be fruitful and multiply. And these things are important for the efficient structure of such.
Thanks for watching this clip from TimcastIRL. Make sure to check out the live.
Fuck.
We got this story from the post-millennial.
Oh, they just cut it off there. Good Lord. He bounces back and forth always. I feel like Tim's biggest issue is he either cannot or will not own a specific position. And it doesn't really matter what it is. He started listening to Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson. Now he's a true believer. Is he? Because I swear to God, I remember him saying that he was an atheist way back when, the atheist stuff was the most profitable.
CBS only finds one Harris supporter in Nevada restaurant. The rest were for Trump. No. It's restaurants. She says in every single restaurant, the people
Restaurants.
willing to talk to us, we could only find one Harris supporter in every restaurant. So they went to a bunch and they could find only a single person in Nevada. I gotta say, I think this sends a good message to Nate Silver. Nate Silver has Trump favored to win the election, winning Nevada. And you look at all these polls and they're like, no, Kamala Harris is going to win in these states or that state or whatever. I think this shows us that I think
he was a lefty shill till like 5 minutes ago. It's not so much the shill shit that's got me confused. It's like, I don't know what or if Tim has a pure belief on anything, really. Like, I don't know what Tim actually believes. And I've watched a lot of his stuff. So, and like I said, that's like the biggest indictment that I can give anybody on this sphere of YouTube is me questioning if you actually believe what you're saying or if you're just saying it because you think you have to, if you are trying to make some point or something like that. How old is this? I thought it was recent. No, this is older. I saw this on Warren Smith video, and I thought it'd be fun to cover because we haven't done anything in a couple of weeks, and I had some free time tonight. I don't know how much free time I have. We're going to get through what we can. But I didn't want to have just like nothing but the AAA meeting on this channel. It sucks sometimes. When, like, I love having the kids home. They're great, and I love hanging out with them and shit. But, like, it's so hard to get shit done. And I don't want to get too much into it. But I've talked about before that my boys are ASD, so they can't really, like, stay home alone all the time and shit like that. So I do shit when I can. But, yeah, I love having them home. It's hard sometimes, I
think Nate Silver may be more likely to be correct. We will see. But I also want to just add, for everybody at home watching this, I want you to, get real cozy on your couch with a blanket or whatever and just feel that smug within you that the CBS desperately tried to find Kamala supporters and could not.
Couldn't find him.
Couldn't find him.
Well, it's interesting. I wonder if I can get your take on two things here. So the first one is, with Kamala Harris, are the Democrats once again putting way too much stock in Zoomers and younger?
Yep.
They're doing it again?
That only really
right?
worked one time. It only worked with Obama, and it didn't work ever before. And I don't think it's really worked
because all the trends, TikTok, this and that, everything is blowing up for Kamala. But are you putting too much faith again that the young people are going to come out and vote?
They're not going to come out and vote. They're going to go ballot harvest.
Yeah, that's true.
They're going to go knock on college dorm rooms and be like, "What up? Did you guys fill out your mail-in ballots?" And they're going to go, "Oh yeah, sure, here you go." And then they got them.
Mm-hmm. And they want it to look like there is this wave of youth voters coming because, hypothetically, if there were any sort of
shenanigans,
they would be able to say like, no, you guys don't understand. We just understand them better than you guys do. I mean, I think this is always the myth of like different voter blocks, right? That they're going to turn out and this is the year, and that's why you see the Harris campaign posturing as like this pop culture icon when it's really not. I think Nevada is funny because I know it often gets kind of written off as a blue state, but I don't think that's fair. There are prominent Republicans in a lot of positions in Nevada. So Nevada, sorry team, I don't know which it is. But I think there is a level of like the media trying to steer the story. If you put out enough polls saying, "Oh no, don't worry about that state. That swing state's definitely for the Harris Walls. Don't even go there, Trump. There's no point in spending money." Then it's sort of too.
Who is this broad still on the show? Holy shit, she is hard to listen to.
To undermine any other political analysis there. It's not based on real people. Because they could have gone to like the Harris Walls headquarters in Nevada and be like, we spoke to many Democrats, but instead, to their credit, they were like, we went to restaurants and couldn't find anybody.
Well, the election is right around the corner, but there's still a long time, if that makes any sense, right? It's right around the corner, but there's still a long way to go until we get there.
Especially given our news cycle. How many more assassination attempts?
And so I'm just wondering, right?
Do you think they'll stop?
I don't know. It's just like this whole year since, I mean, before July, but let's say since the debate in May, it's just
June.
nonstop. Was Biden
27th?
Was Biden? Yeah. It just seems like there's always something coming down the pike. So I agree. Like we're 49 days away. On the other hand, there's so much plot left in this crazy sitcom.
Well, and to your point, you asked the question, right? Is this going to stop with the assassinations, right? For instance.
No, it's not.
No. So once these lunatics understand that the media is going to make demi-heroes out of them, and they do, even though they pretend that they don't, they make demi-heroes out of these potential Trump assassins. They're never going to stop because for the same reason some of these.
They do that with all shooters.
Well, that's my point, though, right? That's what they did. That's what happens. A lot of them want notoriety when they go into, and I'm not even going to get into it because of YouTube, but when they go into those places and do that thing, oftentimes it's because they want the notoriety. These assassins, same thing.
What do you think happens if Donald Trump does not make it to Election Day? Like J.D. Vance is the nominee.
Okay, why? Hold on, I want to see something here real quick. I want to see something. It looks like, by and large, Tim leaves up his stuff. I wonder why he took this Timcast down. Huh. That's very interesting.
Any, like...
Well, do you think people could still vote? Do you think if people vote for the ticket, are they then voting for Vance?
I don't know what the legal precedent. I mean, it was already weird enough when Kamala took over Biden's ticket.
Yeah, and is Kamala Harris printed on all the ballots at this point?
I think they made exceptions.
I think they would just, honestly, I think that they could potentially postpone the election.
I don't know what's the mechanism for doing that.
There is precedent.
What's the mechanism for postponing the election?
I am very disappointed that the original one is gone. There is a different one though. Give me a second, I'll find it. That we could watch a little bit of. Andrew Wilson. Yeah, it's just gone. It's just straight up gone. Hey. All right, let's see if it's on here.
If you're walking down the street and you speak, and a guy turns around and smacks you in the mouth and breaks your jaw, right? He has now used force.
I don't remember if I said hi, but hi.
Against whatever this right you think you have to speak. You have no right to do shit except whatever you can enforce. Right. Your mechanism is force, and the mechanism against you is force. And so all rights are is force.
And like I said, I'm not a big Andrew Wilson fan, but like this made perfect sense to me. I don't know where Tim got lost, or maybe he was just purposely not paying attention. But this made perfect sense.
You're talking about government protections, not rights.
No, I'm talking about rights. What is a right?
So it is an intrinsic moral function.
Well, okay.
Or
intrinsic meaning what?
Andrew Wilson went on Tim Pool's podcast, TimcastIRL, and things got really heated.
I just need
force. Right. Your mechanism is force, and the mechanism against you is force.
And so
all rights are is force.
Of the means by which you are allowed to do it.
Yeah, but what makes it an intrinsic right to be able to do? Like, where does this idea come from other than you axiomatically kind of just say...
I view some things as rights and other things not as rights. Like the left thinks healthcare is a human right, which makes literally...
Yeah, we got
foundation from which you say, I have the right to speak or write.
Okay.
Those don't exist in every...
Oh, no.
So if I have...
But you have a right to eat, otherwise you'll die.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Do you have a right to breathe? What about breathing?
Well, these are good...
Are they not? Like, we have in their mushroom probably situation. I agree with Andrew Wilson,
though.
Okay, so speech is not
like you have to
saying
eat.
Words.
You have a right to eat?
They must have taken the episode down. Okay, so let's get to this. No, it was this one. It might be on Rumble. I'm not going over to Rumble. Yeah, all it is the clips. And it's the way Tim Pool edited them, too. This one.
Oh, you. That will sear through this web of deception. The chorus of the God Emperor sings in my ears. Speak the righteous words. Sing the praises. Defy the darkness. We are the light. We are the light. The veil casts before us. We pray for the master of mankind to lead us on the path of the righteous. We stand before you, Lord of the golden throne, to strike where you would have us strike. To lend me your wrath, lend me your hate, lend me your fire. Praise him!
Oh, that's so fucking good, dude. Oh, that one's so fucking good. Thank you so much, Fostonia, for the big 112. Dude, I told you. I told you that was some good shit. I told you it was the hotness, and hopefully you believe me. Okay, that goose egg on the board simply will not do. I'm going to like the stream, too. Let's see what this dono does. I love the stream so much. Thank you, Fostonia. Thank you so... Yeah, can we get hearts in the chat for Fostonia's incredible generosity? I'm sitting here painting my minis watching this. We'll get into this one, too. I expected that to be, like, multiple clips of the same thing, but it wasn't. Chaos Kit Bash, I'm rather pleased of. Oh, how gross. Okay, I'll take a look here in a little bit. But, yes, thank you, Fostonia. Even Shelly saw that one and was like, okay, yeah, that's really fucking cool. And she's not a big fan of the 40K pop-ups. She's like, yeah, that thing, that's good. That's good. All right, I want to get kind of farther into where Myron starts debating. Now, the dude's face looks so familiar, but I, for the life of me, cannot remember who Myron is. I want to share what you're painting. I think these are just intercessors. Yeah, I'm just painting some intercessors as blood angels. So I have finally decided. What what two armies I want to have. I want to go blood angels, obviously. Yes, the part at the end is cool. I want to go blood angels, and I want to do orcs. I want to do blood angels and orcs. Fresh and fit. Thank you. Fucking you know what? I knew that too, because I think Shelly watches him. But I knew who he was. Like, I've seen him on Destiny and shit before, but I'm like, fucking, I know who this guy is. I can't think of what his actual name. I know his name's Myron, but I can't think of what his, like, his internet name is. Orcs, yeah. Dude, first off, orc lore. Orc lore is so fucking cool. And second off, you need some serious cash for a horde army. So what I want to do is, my local store has it for like $170, but it's on Amazon for $140. I want to get the combat patrol for the orcs, so I'm waiting until I have a little extra cash to pick that up. But yeah, I definitely want to do orcs, and I want to do blood angel, because come on, man. Sanguinius, best boy. Always best boy. So I want to do those two. But, I was going somewhere with this and I fucking forgot. Yeah, I'm just trying to save up some extra cash to pick that up. To pick up the combat patrol for the orcs. My buddy who really got me into orcs was telling me when he first started, like, kind of getting into the hobby, he would play with a guy who played Tyranids, and they wouldn't play by points. They would weigh buckets for their armies and be like, okay, we're going to play like 3 pounds today. Like, dude, that's so funny. And dude, the guy he has like a $30,000 collection of orcs and shit. I was so fucking impressed. And okay, real quick, while we're talking nerd shit, I don't watch Fresh and Fit. I watch Abba and Preach. You're thinking of the other guys. Yeah, I don't watch any right-wing influencers really anymore. My Gene Stealers are kind of horde army. I know the pain. Aren't I just completely lost my train of thought. I don't remember what I was saying, but yeah, I think I want to do that. I was talking to Sam Silent about it, and he's like, yeah, if you have one army, you need another army for them to battle against. Otherwise, what's the point? And then sometimes there's a third army, and then a fourth army pops up. So yeah, all of that was to say I want to do Blood Angels and Orcs. I just need to buy Orcs. I want to set up a look. I'm really getting into this painting thing, and I think I am not doing a bad job with it. I'm not doing a bad job of it at all. But anyway, that was Quad Raptor, the WOG. I'm here for the WOG, though. I'm here for the WOG. I just want to paint the mini. Painting the mini's fucking dope. All right, let's get into this with Fresh and Fit.
Sabotage mission, training ops, all sorts of things. Like, it's totally naive.
And this
to
is older
believe
too.
That in every other theater, every other theater that we're involved in, where we're training people in advisory roles.
I think you think you're debating with someone else.
We're always.
That's not what I'm claiming.
Well, you say you make the claim like, no boots on the ground, no boots on the. It's like there's already boots on the ground though. We already.
I don't know what he's talking about, but there is definitely boots on the ground.
I guarantee you we already have special forces boots on the ground.
If you don't hear what I'm saying, then
look, I think foreign wars in general are a big waste of money. It's not a W for us. It's an L. Let's just be honest here. This whole situation with Russia and aggression, containing it, it's to fund the military-industrial complex.
I want to put together a perfect gray Millennium Falcon. I started with Tyranids, then Raven Guard. No, I'm not super hip to the Raven Guard lore. Like, I don't know, man. Blood Angels are just... Maybe I have to get a little more acquainted with the Raven Guard, but Blood Angels tickle me where I want to be tickled, if you're picking up what I'm putting down.
We need to be able to rationalize and justify our armament, so we need to go ahead and have this conflict with Russia, when in reality we need to, figure out some type of diplomatic middle ground with them versus having an issue with a nuclear-armed superpower.
Capable.
I think peace is the way to go, but we want to sit here and substantiate our military-industrial complex, which is problematic.
Okay, Russia is so strange. Russia was the one who violated peace. We had peace, and then Russia made it no longer peace.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to get into how that happened, or are we just going to pretend like? Oh, and one day, for no reason at all, Russia decided to bomb Ukraine. Is that what we're going to pretend here? Because I think all of us are educated enough to know that is not what happened at all. And we shouldn't even pretend like that's what happened. We all saw it. We all have televisions. Like, okay, sure, your timeline is different, but the reality is Kamala Harris went over there talking about, oh, you guys should join NATO, when the treaty was very specific about these things. Bandai Hobby, Star Wars. Oh, that's what I was going to talk about. A New Hope Millennium Falcon, Perfect Grade PG model kit. Ooh, how much is that going to run you? What's the damage to that one? And that's what I was going to talk about. Like, I have been collecting Dragon Ball figures since fucking like 2003. It was like right when the kids were born. I needed a hobby that I could do at home. And they came out with a new one, the Guru figure, which everyone had been asking for years. When are we going to get a Guru? How about a Guru? Right now, $400 on Amazon. Well, here, let me show you something. When are we going to get a Guru figure? We want the Elder Namek Guru. So they finally fucking did it. They finally put out a Guru figure. Look at this shit. $310. $310. And this is all it does. It puts its arm down. $310 for an arm and a faceplate? Are you joking? Is this a fucking joke? Like let me see if I can find it here. I see if I. Oh, here we go. So that was an arm and a faceplate for $310. The Purunga figure, which is like 2-something feet tall, posable, multiple joints, faceplates, Dende, light up Dragon Balls, all that stuff. $10 less. Are you out of your fucking mind? No, I bought this one when it came out. Fuck yeah. But I'm not buying that Guru figure. No chance.
And then they were fighting, and we went,
Invest in a 3D printer. Ah, boy, yeah. Then that's a good idea, actually. I'll keep it right next to my 3D printed Titan, or my other. I have a 3D printer.
I mean, a little bit before
We were
decided
promising
they
not to expand NATO for
give
decades,
support.
and we just keep doing.
I'm like 99% sure there's Guru fucking statues that will have the same effect. And they're like, okay, it's a little bit bigger. Yeah, but like, I'm not spending $310 more than the Purunga. Get the fuck out of here, dude.
Actually,
Sorry, you can ask Shelly. Like, I'll be just like walking through that, like, can you believe that shit? $310.
never formally promised that, but
Formally.
yeah, yeah.
It was
I'm very sour about it.
a memo. It wasn't a treaty.
Yeah.
Number one, but number two, like, was that?
Anyone
We
can be
didn't
NATO.
invite Ukraine into NATO. Is that what you guys talked about? Like, there was no offer.
Before they invaded, Ukraine specifically said, we're not going to be,
Yeah.
like, we're not entering NATO, and the United States was like, yeah, it's not happening, and Russia still invaded. So
It
it's
is
not
not.
Yeah,
well, let's clarify. The issue wasn't NATO. The issue was the European Union. And so
Shelly said that's true. He is very sour. Dude, it bugs me so fucking bad. Like, goddamn. Yes, that's a cool figure. Yes, we all wanted a Guru figure. And like, oh yeah, you want a fucking Guru figure? Watch this shit, motherfucker. Here's one, $300. It's like, okay, no, I don't want one that badly. I will 3D print and paint a Guru statue, or I will buy a Guru statue. What I won't be doing is buying one for $310 plus tax plus shipping. Anyway, sorry, Jesus Christ.
Vladimir Putin went to Ukraine and said, if you open up your borders to trade with Europe, and we have open borders with you, European goods will flood into Russia and it'll destabilize our economy. So you have to choose either Europe or Russia. The issue was Ukraine largely was like, you mean we get access to the Schengen zone and European trade, but we lose Russia? Europe.
Yeah.
Russia got pissed and said, no, hold on. We need Sevastopol. We need Crimea. We can't lose that to the West. Now you can make the arguments about what you think happened with the ousting of Yanukovych. A lot of people believe that it was U.S. aid and the CIA that went in to help foment these groups that ultimately stormed his mansion and ousted the guy, forced him to flee to Russia. But this bubbling conflict in the country and political destabilization was definitely both Russia and NATO, Western forces, vying through political means to gain control of Russia. Of Ukraine.
I get being salty about it. It's so fucking annoying because, like, I have all of the SH figure arts, sans reissues, and shit like that. It's like, okay, this one, I can't buy this one new figure specifically. That's cool, fine.
Great, sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. I think that all that dynamic is
And I don't have the first one, but
very important. And I don't think Russia should have a say in.
Yeah, so it's not like they just invaded out of nowhere. You know what I mean? I think
Which
it's
is what you
important
were
to
just saying.
understand, like,
What?
Yeah, that is. It's what you were just like. You kind of just
Andrew,
back off immediately
Andrew.
on your own position right away.
You,
Like,
you
dude,
clearly don't even know what my own position is. I'm saying all of those things contribute. That doesn't make it justified. Someone can be.
No, you said there was peace, and then
Someone-
Russia violated it, and then backed off in the position the second it was clarified by Tim.
Wait, hold on.
There. But
What are you
I
talking
don't think
about,
there was a
Andrew?
contradiction.
That
there.
was
You could
just
say
Okay, okay.
You could say that
our position, I think me and
Oh
Andrew's
my
position
God.
is we need to stop sending aid to Ukraine and end this.
Yeah, we got your position.
That's our
you can
position.
violate peace for a reason. He had a reason. I just don't think it's a justified reason. We shouldn't have started a war over it.
Let's ask the simple
Can
question.
you acknowledge
then, based on
there's a difference between what you just said, Andrew?
No. Your implication was everyone was minding their own business and getting along fine, and then the Russians.
it's a reasonable frustration when a $100 Gundam is more articulatable. But that's the thing, man, is your your bog standard figure arts are super articulatable with multiple hands and fucking multiple faceplates and shit like that. And then you give me this? Is this supposed to be a joke?
That's what I believe.
moved into the Ukraine, right?
Everything was perfect.
Let's
and then Russia
ask the
invaded.
question that Myron brought up. Should we cut off the aid and just say no more involvement in Ukraine?
Zero.
No, I don't think so.
I think end all aid, stop it, and end the fight now. Like, we need to end it now.
If Ukraine wanted to end the fight, then we could figure out what.
Wait,
who cares?
We're
what they
not
think?
at the mercy of
Hold
the
on. Let me say this.
They're
If
the
we're
ones
funding
fighting.
the
We're
war,
not gonna
If
start our
we're
end
funding
war.
the conflict, we're giving them all the aid. We dictate what happens. I
That's
find
not
it
true,
interesting
but,
how we let these other countries like Israel, Ukraine, dictate our foreign policy. We give you the money. We tell you what it is. Fuck that.
It's not true.
he's
Ukraine
right.
would, or we.
Tell Zelensky, hey, dumbass, we put you in power. You do what we say.
I just want to
Let me
say,
ask you guys these questions. This question.
Wild.
What is the strategic, economic, or otherwise benefit of our involvement in Ukraine?
my understanding is
Zero.
That,
Well, go ahead.
fuck you.
Yeah. 0 8.
But also,
Zero
fuck
aid.
you, no.
Zero benefit.
My
Best
understanding.
answer of the debate so far.
Well, fuck you or zero. My understanding is, this should not be the primary motivator, and I'm not sure that it is. But if you take just morality out of the equation, looking at Russia as a geopolitical rival, they have been weakened as a consequence of this. Now, you can say that they're going to win, and certainly they have still the stronger military, but they are not in a better position now than they were prior to the war, number one. Number two, we consider Ukraine an ally. We consider them somebody that, we have diplomatic and economic incentives for them to succeed. Also, by definition.
For what, though? Why? Why do we have these? Why is this our fight? The Guru figure is a joke. I collect Pokemon figures. I have a Mewtwo who's ridiculously posable and costs $50. Yeah, you can get like a figure arts figure at Walmart or Target for $25, $35, and it's got 10 times the articulatableness in the arm.
The European Union as well. So it seems like we have diplomatic and economic reasons and to try to weaken Russia, number one.
Yes.
But I just want to be clear, at least for me, and I'm sure Luke would agree, if Ukraine did not want to fight, like, I don't think we should be forcing or coercing Ukraine to fight. If they decide, like, you know what, fuck it, we've resisted, let's have either a settlement or just wave the white flag all the way around. I mean, I think it would suck that we were empowering and rewarding Putin, but like...
How is that empowering or rewarding him by saying we're not going to fund young people's deaths?
At that point, yes, the aid should be cut off, but my understanding is they still want to fight, and they just need help. So
who is they, though?
Ukrainian people, right? Isn't there in the Ukrainian government?
Zelensky wants to fight.
Well, I believe that largely the population has either resisted conscription or fled the country.
Yeah.
Not the majority, I'm saying, but...
Oh, I'm sure there's people doing that. Yeah,
I mean, they're drafting women and elderly. At
They're not.
So I don't
could
think
pull a
people want to
polling.
fight.
I'm sorry.
I'm
You're right.
curious.
To be clear,
People.
I'm sure the number of people who want to pick up a gun and fight Russian soldiers, I'm sure that number...
And that's
has
what matters.
diminished.
Not the puppet that we put in place.
No,
I
not
agree,
even
it's not just
Zelensky.
leaders.
Let's not even call it
public
puppet. Let's just say
opinion. It's
the
public opinion.
government of a small group of people. Do you guys believe that the small government, this limited amount of people, have a right to force the people of Ukraine through conscription to go fight a war?
No, I'm saying. Well, I mean, yeah. If they have drafts, they could probably draft people. Yeah.
So the question then becomes, when you say
I'm
Ukraine
saying-
wants to fight, you're talking about the
That's what I was about to
oligarchs and the
specify.
politicians,
That's what I
not
was
the
about to
people.
specify. Yeah, I was about to
Well,
specify.
what they're
No,
actually...
Wait. Just let me specify. If public opinion
real
was
quick.
against it, I would say, well, they
And it's an important
democratically
thing.
should listen to the public opinion.
The government of Ukraine has largely been described for decades as an oligarchy. You guys know how the oligarchy formed
And
in Ukraine?
corrupt. Super
Very corrupt.
Let
corrupt.
me answer your question.
I'm
No, you
making
asked the question.
Sure. I'm making a point about the structure of the government. That's why I asked the question. After the fall of the Soviet Union, the general story is that you've got these Soviet factories, for instance. They run up the chain of command through the Communist Party. That's how the Soviet Union ran. When the Soviet Union collapses and Ukraine effectively becomes its own state, where does this factory answer to now that the party has been shattered? What happens was, there's one story of a guy, one of the oligarchs, got a couple of his buddies with some guns, walked into the factory and said, who's in charge? And I'm the foreman. And they say, okay, we're going to take care of everything for you. We're the bosses. This is our factory now. And they say, well, what does that mean? It means all the supplies you need to come in and make the factory work, we will take care of, but you answer to me. And the worker said, that sounds great to us, actually, because we don't know who we're supposed to answer to. This created a massive wealth gap in Ukraine for decades, where you had a very small group of ultra-wealthy individuals. One of the most interesting things I found about Kiev is that the price of a condo or a house was comparable to a house or a condo in the United States, despite the fact that these people were making about $400 a month.
So I'm getting lost here. What is Tim's point?
So with the government being largely oligarchic, the question of whether or not Ukraine wants to fight this war is an interesting one, and I'm curious what you guys think.
Yes. So back to just public opinion. If there was an overwhelming opposition within Ukraine among Ukrainian citizens for continuing this war, then I think that they should resolve it because democracy.
Yeah. I mean, like, again, this is not something I focus on my channel. So for all I know, there's compelling evidence that the public sentiment is fuck it. Let's just again either negotiated settlement or concede the land.
Wow, 25% of the population has been displaced, with 7 million as refugees fleeing the country.
Yeah, man.
By the way,
they don't want the war. Again, it's American media that controls it. Like, yeah, we're going to go out and fight this war. We got Zelensky, and who's obviously like a puppet of the United States. It's the United States saying we need to weaken Russia at any cost. If it means Ukrainians die and we spend a bunch of money, we're going to do it. The people don't want the war.
This brings up a more compelling question I'd like you to answer to, though, Luke, which is this.
Wow.
Do you think
Sorry.
ultimately that Russia likely is going to win the conflict with Ukraine and get at least a large portion of Ukrainian land? Do you think ultimately that's going to happen?
Yeah.
Then the entailment actually of your position is this: when you say weaken Russia, that you want the United States to fund an oligarchical government which will continue to draft the citizenry of the Ukraine to go die to weaken people you don't like.
Exactly.
That is the action. Hang on. I just want to make sure. What did I just say there that's incorrect?
All of it.
Okay, which thing?
Yeah. So I keep saying, and as I'm polling myself, it's been pretty quickly dropping year by year public support for this. And so as we
No. What what Andrew said there was spot on all the way down. There was not one incorrect thing. You want this thing because you get the outcome that you desire. Now, does this guy personally want it? Probably not, but his political party wants it, so he can't turn against that.
get less and less support among Ukraine, because I'm not saying they should die for us if they don't want to. And as more people
none of them want to die for us, bro. Nobody wants to die for us.
Some of them are willing to die for their own country, and I'm saying
their country.
If they're doing
at
it
least
for
not 10 million of them.
If they're
quarter of the country.
Well,
yeah, but I'm sorry. Yeah, but
out,
that's what he meant. Like he's saying.
But
That
you're saying you want American treasure to prop this up in order to assist these war fighters for your interest to go die on behalf of an oligarchical nation, which is drafting their own citizenry. You want to pay for that because it weakens a geopolitical rival of yours.
I think you correct me if I'm wrong, because I know this is my position. I think the position is we should be continuing to support an ally as long as they want to resist an invader, a foreign invader, which incidentally also benefits us directly because it weakens a foreign adversary, that same invader. For me, the calculus changes tremendously if it turns out that, that Zelensky is forcing the Ukrainian people to resist. Like they don't want to resist.
Yes, and that's our point.
He's I understand that he is drafting people.
Yeah, what's a draft?
He's kidnapping them. He's literally kidnapping of age men and taking them and forcing them to be in the military.
There are people who are trying to leave as refugees who are grabbed and then dragged back kicking and screaming.
The people don't want this is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So then we would...
There's videos of this stuff.
Well, no.
So we agree then.
You see the videos of the women being captured too? It's nuts.
But
You guys are
let's
saying-
just start with the fundamental question. What is a draft?
You are taking of age people and forcing
Compelling
them,
them
against
into
their will.
service.
You're compelling them, yes, to fight.
Yeah, so the thing is like when you say, if it turns out this government is forcing people, like, what are you talking about? The entailment immediately of I'm drafting your ass is that you're being forced to go fight when ordinarily you wouldn't. Why wouldn't you just have a volunteer armed forces instead of a draft? Because you're compelling a populace or a group of people who doesn't want to fight to go do it anyway.
No, I understand. So let me ask you if you...
I understand, but anyway, here's how you're wrong. They just do not understand what a draft is? Again, I think I have to go back to is this what some people actually believe, or are they just saying what they think they have to say for some reason? Like, that seems pretty laid bare to me. Like, that's not debatable. It's not debatable. Is being drafted right? I think this was a separate conversation times, but that's a good question. Do you have the right to your own body if a draft comes around? Do you have the right to say no?
Do you recognize any distinction between this? Because perhaps it's a distinction without a difference. Do you recognize that there are people who do not want Russia to conquer Ukrainian territory or Ukraine writ large, but are not prepared to pick up a gun and voluntarily attack?
Of course, sure. Yeah.
Sure. Is that a distinction worth noting? Because what I'm referring to is the former, not the latter. I totally concede that based on reports, there's been drafts and conscriptions for months.
No.
Years? Okay.
Yeah.
But that my understanding is that the public sentiment of the people in Ukraine is that they don't want Russia to take this territory. If that's wrong, then my interest in funding the war or whatever it is, or propping up Ukrainian resistance to Russia, plummets dramatically.
Oh, wait a second. What you're talking about here it still brings up another question, which is, let's just say it's like 55% or 60% of the nation, right, who wants this war, right? They want to keep they want to keep themselves sovereign. Yeah. Let's just say that that's all the public.
Like a small majority, or like
a small majority or whatever. They can institute a draft against the minority who can fight, which is going to be kids, mostly young men, right? That's going to be your warfighter age, 18 to 25. Obviously, they're going to be outnumbered by other people, so they can compel their citizenry to go fight, because they don't have to, right? But ordinarily, they would not be able to do this, nor do this compelling service, unless they were enabled by the treasury of a large first world nation, which is supporting it. So it seems like you have a moral quagmire here, a big problem.
Oh, there is.
A big problem on your end of thinking that, hey, we can use this as a buffer against our geopolitical enemy, regardless of who it kills.
I think it's also very important to know Eastern Ukraine is ethnic Russian mostly, and a lot of them do want to be a part of Russia.
So I do want to move on, unless you want to make a quick final point, guys.
Sure, we could talk Israel.
No, I think as far as
Israel,
again,
let's do it.
I'll totally concede that this is a very morally ambiguous conflict. That you pointed out that even if a majority of Ukrainian citizens want to resist Russia in the sense that they don't want Russia to come take over,
they're not the ones fighting.
I think any draft or conscription, at the bare minimum, and I'm not a debate philosopher like you are, so but is morally ambiguous to say the least.
That's the thing that makes Andrew so difficult to debate against. And I disagree with him vehemently on stuff, but he will take he debates from a almost exclusively philosophical standpoint, and if you are not rock solid 100% thought through in every one of your opinions, then he'll shred the fuck out of you.
60 years old.
I just think that my understanding is Ukraine wants to resist Russia, and I don't have any issue with the United States continuing to supply the means by which.
So let's move.
If the premise,
I'll wrap it.
If the premise is wrong, I would be happy to revisit.
Let's talk about Israel.
Can I? My closing is not controversial. Another reason I agree. Public support is dropping. It's kind of complicated for what they support, what type of peace deal they support, what's being taken, all that. And I have the same stances from where we started based on public sentiment, and I understand what you're saying. I'll note that I also think for leverage to get a better deal for Ukraine, it's important that the United States stands like we're going to support them to infinity and beyond, so that Russia doesn't feel like, wait, if we just wait out American support for Ukraine.
Yeah, Tim definitely has some questionable beneficiaries, I think would be the right way to put that.
We can take even more, right? So that they believe, gosh, we're stopping up at this line. Okay,
let's talk about Israel. So a couple days ago, it was announced that there was a ceasefire that was reached. We're still waiting to see if it happens. There's going to be a vote in Israel. There's contention over who is responsible. Biden says it was his diplomacy and his plan. However, some foreign policy experts, including The Atlantic, wrote that Trump is the one who pushed this over the limit. So there's a lot of questions pertaining to Israel. Should we be involved in this conflict? Should we continue to fund them? What degree of support for Palestine do you guys have, and how do you view the war? And I don't know who wants to jump in first.
Who wants to go first?
Well, I'll put my position out there. I don't think that we should be supporting either the Palestinians nor the Israelis in this conflict. Never have thought so. It's a terrible entanglement for us. We can't win, regardless of which side we were to back. We can't win if we back Palestinians. Not in the court of public opinion. The entire Arab world would love us. whereas most of the Western world would hate us. If we back Israel, the exact opposite. Most of the Arab world will absolutely hate us, and there will be blowback and consequences from that too. It's another great reason why our foreign policy should be one of disentangling ourselves from these foreign conflicts, and especially in Israel, we need to back away from that conflict as fast as possible, and that's always been the case. It's the first time I've ever heard progressives actually say something like that. So
I'll give my
for
stance
that.
on
I'll
it.
give them some credit.
No foreign aid to Israel. I think Israel's caused the United States a lot of problems. They run our foreign policy. If you look at every single terrorist.
Why'd you
attacked the
soy
United
face,
States.
Tim? Why'd you soy face?
200,000 Ukrainian troops deserted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
AP reporting the official number is 100,000 charged, and estimates of upwards of 200,000 people have deserted.
That's why they were kidnapping people.
I don't
That's
want
what
to get
I'm
back on
saying,
Ukraine, but when I saw that, I went, "Holy
yeah, dude.
crap!"
It's
Like Israel.
terrible. Yeah, but no, it's crazy. That's why I'm saying the conflict in Ukraine is a waste of time. But yeah, when it comes to Israel, I don't see any strategic advantage the United States enjoys from supporting Israel. There's virtually none. Oh, there are eyes and ears in the Middle East. Well, the Middle East wouldn't hate us if we did not support Israel. So. Yeah, I think when it comes to Israel and our support of them, the only reason we do is because we have very rich.
Damn, Fresh and Fit is fresh and on point.
Lobbyists that make sure that we do, and our support of Israel needs to drop off.
Don't tell me you guys are going to support Israel now.
So, number one,
Well, I think you asked about the potential peace. We're gonna have to see how it's implemented, if it works, because even immediately it was sort of, is this
saw Netanyahu delayed the vote.
go through? I think they ended up voting today. But and then the next, because a part of the deal is that later parts of the deal are going to be negotiated later. So seeing how all that plays out, will
Phase
give us a
2
sense
and
if
3
there's
and
lasting
stuff like
peace or
that,
not.
yeah.
But the fighting stopping, the dying stopping, the carnage stopping is obviously good. Interestingly, I've seen some people on the left not acknowledge at all what you're talking about with the Trump envoy's role in this. Josiah and I both said did we cover this? No.
You covered it.
We
I haven't
talked
done
about
a video
behind
in like
the
3 days.
For us, it's obviously silly to not acknowledge at all the months of negotiations and the deal that's been constructed under the Biden administration. Biden's still the president, so if you're giving credit,
This is an older stream, if you guys can't tell.
that would some would lie there, but I acknowledge that the bipartisan presence in these negotiations, adding to, hey, it's not just us. You can't wait out the clock on Biden, Netanyahu, and Hamas. Trump is also saying the same united voice about what's gonna happen here, and that united front I do think was powerful. And with all my feelings that you've heard throughout this show about Trump, I'd give him or his envoy Steve Witkoff, is that
real estate guy. No, 100%. Like I don't want to put the cart before the horse, because again, foreign policy, not my area of expertise to the extent I have any. My understanding was there have been like
Well, and even experts get it wrong constantly.
Well, but haven't there been like ceasefires negotiated or talks? We got a ceasefire and then it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So I'm with Luke. Like, you got to wait and see. But I am happy to give Trump a lot of the credit here, some of the credit here, because it was bipartisan effort. It was Biden's deal, my understanding of the framework of the deal, and Trump left them no safe harbor. He was like, you take this deal because you're not getting, I want this done before Inauguration Day.
I completely agree with you. Trump is the best. He's the greatest president.
Motherfucker right here. I'm going to withdraw that fuck you that I gave to you, and I'm going to toss it your way, all right?
So wait, what is your guys' stance on Israel, though, and support, though? I see that you guys agree with the deal, which it's good that there is a ceasefire. I agree. But I think in general, our aid of Israel has created a lot of problems for the United States.
I think in general, throughout the conflict, there's lots of times and reasons to be supporting Israel, but I think what we're learning a little bit through the end of this process is Biden should have done a lot more leveraging, thus threatening withdrawing and potentially withdrawing aid to get a better resolution earlier. And the fact that didn't happen, I think, is a stain.
I'm uncomfortable. I was just going to say, as a general proposition, and I'm not sure there's any nation this applies to except Israel. I'm uncomfortable with the notion of unconditional support to any ally. Of course. And I feel like even more like in the United Kingdom or even Ukraine, I feel like Israel gets a blank check from the United States. They do. As far as that makes me incredibly uncomfortable.
We shouldn't be. They quite literally do get a blank check from us, and it's not just from us. It's from me and you in the chat, assuming you're an American taxpayer, which I assume most of you are. That's who they get the blank check from, not the United States. They get it from me and you.
they have nuclear weapons. We shouldn't even be giving it to them off of that.
I kind of feel like there's a largely, I don't want to say complete agreement, but large agreement over we shouldn't be funding these wars. Trump did help get this past the line. I think this has been like the easiest subject for
Nobody
us.
likes APAC.
Like, who'd have thought Israel was the easiest subject for this debate? Everyone's kind of like, yeah, you know.
Yeah, I think it's the whole support of Israel. One thing I've noticed is that whether left or right, both people oppose Israel for different reasons. On the left, it tends to be for more humanitarian reasons. On the right, it's more for they influence our foreign policy, and this is problematic.
Economic, too.
Yeah, economically as well. So, you know, and I think this is why the ADL is rallying so hard, like, we need to stop this, blah, blah, blah. Jonathan Greenblatt was literally in Israel talking about we need some type of sophisticated situation where we stop these dissenters of Israel like we did with the Hezbollah pager attack. And I'm like, holy shit, this guy's over there. He's an American citizen, right, allegedly, in a foreign land talking about how we need to police language in the United States. That's crazy.
That is not only crazy, that is something that they should be, should have been held to account for. Because I seem to remember a very big debate that we had over here not super long ago was that if somebody comes to our country and talks bad about it, people said they should be removed. Okay, so then what do we do about officials who go to other countries and talk bad about us?
But that's what they do.
Let's we have about a half an hour, so I do want to make sure we get into the harder culture war issues. We talked about Trump as a person, actions he's taken. We talked about
Repeal the 19th.
Yeah, so let's start here. And I'm going to kick it off with something that's rather speculative. But we saw the overturn of Roe v. Wade. The argument largely from the Supreme Court is like, what are we doing here, right? They seem to take this position that this is not an answer for this. This is not a question for the Supreme Court. Let's start at the states. I believe there's a strong possibility in this next coming Trump administration, we see the overturning of Obergefell.
Which is the 2015 case which codified gay marriage.
Basically required all the states to recognize that if a gay marriage had existed, and they moved to another state, they have to be recognized
honored,
as being,
yeah.
Right. I think that elections have consequences, of which one was not directly, but with this structure of the Supreme Court, it seems likely that we're going to see a massive cultural shift. I think it's probable that we do have a case.
I don't think for a second that there is a chance that gay marriage as a right will get overturned. I think that the optics of that is so bad that they won't even touch it. I don't think there is a chance in hell that that happens. I think that would be incredibly, incredibly stupid.
I believe that's going through now. I forgot which one it is, that could see gender identity removed as a protected class. I also think the Supreme Court may likely, if challenged, or I should say if a challenge is presented, overturn gay marriage. And I'm curious what our non-liberal friends think, because largely conservatives aren't going out there and making a principal issue that gay marriage should be ended, but I think they'd probably support the end of gay marriage.
I'll go first on this then, Andrew, because I know you have more nuance. Mine is very simple. Gays should be able to have civil unions, not gay marriage. It's a religious sacrimony. Then, you know, obviously we all know the Abrahamic religions forbid homosexuality. So I don't think that they should have the ability to marry, but they should have all the civil liberties and protections.
I think that marriage as a sacrament can be up to the church, but marriage as a legality, they should have all the same rights that we enjoy.
That come from marriage, but the title itself needs to be changed. I also think that gay marriage is kind of a slippery slope that's allowed a lot of sexual degeneracy to kind of flourish, right? Whether it's the 99 genders, all the other problems that we have with the drag queens, etc. I understand that it's a small minority. Trans represent 1%, but it's been problematic. And gay marriage has absolutely allowed that to flourish.
Okay, let me
Hang on,
first
get my position.
And then you give your position, and I know, yeah.
So anyway.
Okay, stop, Andrew.
Yeah,
Chill.
you stop, Luke.
You've said that every
Luke,
time.
Calm down, Luke.
I thought I was
calm
about
down,
to go.
Luke. Calm
Well,
down.
Luke, let him give
Dude, this guy's got a fucking boner for Andrew.
your
Take a breath,
position, and then you can
Take a
refute
breath.
Literally said,
Hostility is
I'll go
shown on
first,
us.
then Andrew. Calm down, Luke.
There we go.
Go
for it.
Remember how Tim said, I'm interested to hear from the non-liberals, their
I forgot
position.
about that, yeah.
That's not, are you a non-liberal?
I just
He's going to say it's a libertarian now.
Stop talking. Luke,
let's
stop talking, Luke.
Luke, just
Stop talking.
Okay, guys.
and then you can refute it.
Luke,
I know you disagree with us.
I don't
because-
actually care to
real
go
quick.
right now. I'm just curious, like, why
Because-
you're this wound up.
All right, okay, guys, come on.
The only person
because
that's Bergen is you.
Right, okay, guys.
Bergley.
The reason I asked the non-liberals is because they're going to present the argument that
The only person spurging is you, Spurgley.
that is outside the current standard.
Yeah.
It is currently the standard that Obergefell's upheld. What do you think?
So marriage is only as useful as it is recognized. And
Marriage.
the state cannot force people to recognize marriage. They can't do it. People's purview of marriage is that it's between men and women. There's a reproductive status which occurs with it, and that it's a institution which is sacramental through religion. This is the purview of most people who still identify in this country. By the way, the majority still identify as Christian, like it or not. They still do. And so marriage is only as useful as it's recognized. We've had gay marriage now for a while, and it's still not recognized. That's the truth is that Christians still don't recognize it. They still don't consider it to be valid. They may say you're married. They may, the state can imbue you with marriage, and you can even have polls where conservatives say, you know what, fine, whatever, right? But they themselves, they don't recognize it as being valid. So I think it's completely fine for the Supreme Court to say, look, this is invalid. This should be a religious institution. We should take it out of the state's hands anyway.
Just to clarify, the ruling on Obergefell wasn't about whether it was a religious institution or not. It was about
I know.
It was a core component was whether states should recognize licensing from other states.
Yeah, just the secular part.
Right. Yeah. It was 5-4 on the liberal side, which is why I think it might go 5-4 inverting, overturning.
It could be.
Wait, before you respond, because Myron said something interesting that I did not hear Andrew echo, and I'm curious on that. He made a caveat for like civil unions or like secular unions. Would you do that as well, or no?
No, I think, here's what I think. I think that marriage itself as an institution from the state is gone anyway. I mean, look at the divorce rates, everything else. It's basically destroyed. From a secular paradigm, I actually don't even understand the point of marriage for secularists. If it's just for tax purposes.
I was about to say, taxes.
Then reform.
That's why I gave that caveat.
Spoiler alert!
That's
the only reason I gave that caveat.
Then all you have to do is simply reform the tax code so that these breaks are still given to whoever, or you can just reform the tax code.
I think you two are much more likely to accept gay marriage than we are to reform the tax code.
Hang on.
Throw that out there. So yeah,
He's probably right.
I mean, that's one thing you can do. The second thing is the breaks aren't that great. That's the truth. They're not.
And at a certain level, they're not.
The third thing is that as far as like a prime directive or things like that, you can give that to your best friend Doug. Like you could give your advance directive to your best friend Doug. You can do that to anybody who you're with. So all of those things you have access to regardless of your marital status. Secularists, it doesn't even make sense for them to be married. And if they are, why can't they just say, well, I declare that I'm married?
So again,
I declare I'm married.
No adoption of children either. Gays should completely be removed from being allowed to be around children.
Just to further clarify one last thing. So in your construction, there would be like no state involvement with marriage or civil union at all.
Yeah, the only way that the state would become involved, and necessarily it would have to, would be for some things which could be custodial, things like that. But generally...
There'd be no license.
But generally, religion has always governed these things. And there's ecclesiastical authority standards from the Catholic and Orthodox Church, for instance, that govern how marriage goes. And by the way, the more religious you are, if you defer to the church for assisting you in if they grant a divorce in the first place, in custody arrangements, things like this, they have a great track record of that. The state doesn't. The state doesn't have a good track record of it. They generally favor one parent over the other, and that's been the woman for a long time. That's been the standard. It is slowly changing, thank God, but that has been the case. There's actually no good reason, no compelling reason for secularists to get married at all. Definitely no compelling reason for homosexuals to get married. They're not going to be able to get married in Christian churches anyway. So who are they getting married by? Just the state.
There are Christian churches.
No, those aren't Christian churches. Identifying as self-ID, if I'm Christian, doesn't make you Christian.
Okay, so
go ahead.
yeah, let me go. So you mentioned, I know some of yours is detaching from, because you're saying even marriage in general is tarnished now. But to Tim's question, marriage isn't religious when the state is the one bolstering it, right? We have the separation of church and state, so it has to be a secular concept.
Why does the state need to be involved in marriage?
Even if it's bolstering a, something that crosses over with a religious practice, which is marriage. So the state honoring a marriage, which is just a legal commitment between two people. And that's something that people who are secular also want to make. And that's the state honoring, because I do think a society is better off when people make such commitments to...
Yeah, why do you need the state for that commitment?
There's all sorts of things that the state will incentivize, even like as we try to implement some pro-family policies that give you better family.
Gay shit my family.
Whoa.
Let me finish. Let me finish.
go ahead,
Come on. And that, you know, child tax credit, there's things that you want to support and incentivize through the implementation of policy. I think marriage is one of them. And so it can't be about whether or not it's tarnishing the religious concept of marriage, because those two things are separate concepts. Then you brought up, and I hear this
Can we
a
do
lot.
it one point at a time?
Well, you made a lot of points as well. But you brought up that marriage is believed to be a man-woman concept.
Yes.
But I feel like that's a strange thing to put your argument on, because it's just public opinion, and public opinion has shifted so radically. Like right here, is this support for same-sex marriage? Yeah, so there's actually a majority support if you want to look up there.
It shows that.
It's dropping, but you were wrong.
No, I wasn't wrong.
You were wrong that people don't support same-sex marriage, because you were saying the concept is believed to be by people between a man and woman, which is not what the polling shows.
That's not what I said, Luke.
And then you talked about it being for reproduction. So I would ask, any restriction
We're Gen Z, it dropped significantly.
you would implement for same-sex couples, would you implement for like infertile couples?
Okay, so let's back up, and yes, I'll answer your question, but I'm going to take these one at a time.
All right.
Okay, so let's start with what I actually said. I literally said, Luke, that it's the perception of the religious. These aren't valid. They're not saying you can't do them, because they just consider them to be invalid. Okay. And when you dig into the data, that's what you find. That's one. The second thing is the government's job, when the state gets involved for marriage, it's supposed to be for the promotion of the health and welfare of the state. That would be the family unit. Now, we can look at birth rates in the United States, and we can see marriage has not done us any favors when it comes to reproduction. It has not done us any favors when it comes to intact family units, more single moms than ever, more single fathers than ever. There's almost no virgins who get married. I mean, it's basically that ship has sailed.
This is where Andrew takes it down, the religious side of things, which I'm not shockingly a big fan of. So I think I might cut it there, and I will see all of you guys tomorrow for the AAA meeting, possibly on Polydub's channel, and Sin Day Wednesday over on the Sin and Sash channel. I don't feel like getting much into the religion debate right now. I'm kind of worn out on it, honestly. All the religion talk over on the Sin and Sash channel has significantly worn me out to it. Religion is such a convenient excuse to be shitty to people. And like, are there true believers for religion? Absolutely. There are absolutely people who genuinely believe in their religion, but so many people use it as just an excuse to be shitty, and I'm just not here for it. And my take on it. I was born and raised Catholic, but I don't give a shit if you're gay. Go ahead, be gay. Who cares? It's nobody's business, but can't have that opinion sometimes. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to get out of here, guys. Thank you, and I will see you tomorrow. Later, y'all.